Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday night, and it's not the Diet Podcast, it's the TNG review show. Oh, roaring music. Good evening, everyone. Now, as we know, my series wouldn't be my series without technical glitches. And we've just lost G-Star. Oh, he's just come back.
Yay!
Yay! Oh, dear. I thought for a minute, G, we were going to be starting without you. Oh, is he there? He's having...
Somebody switched off the lights, G.
He's having technical difficulties. But, oh, right, well...
I seem to be operating better on a booster than I used to from my main router.
Oh, do you? Is that helping you, is it? Yeah. Well, whilst G-Star tries to get himself sorted out, we shall continue. So, how are you this evening, Mazam Bob?
I'm very good, thank you. Yes.
Oh, good. He's gone again.
Spent the weekend making candles for G and LJ. So that was nice. Bit different.
Yeah.
Other than that, just been working.
Very cool.
How are you?
I am well. Yes. Been very busy with work, but I'm just glad that it's Wednesday night and we get to talk a bit of Star Trek.
Yeah. It's very good.
It's very good. Who have we got on chat this evening then? Evening Smiler, to you. Evening Hydro, good that you could come along. And good evening to Lindy Hop. Yes. I see G came for a bit and he's gone again. Yeah, it looks like he's messaged me and he's having internet connection issues. We will try again and see if we can get him.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Right, yes.
He's kind of frozen now, but at least he said hello.
Yeah, and of course I was trying to sort this out and I put the chat window to the back so it hasn't been updating. So there you go. Yes, chat. Thank you, Smiler. You have to remind me. Yes. Does that mean twins?
Don't know.
Probably something I said.
Oh,
is it the tops? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. G-Star, welcome. Good to have you on board. How can you hear me all right?
Can you see me?
we can see you, yes.
Yeah. Do you know, strangely, you're now coming out of just one ear.
One ear.
Which is strange. So.
You're in my this ear.
Yeah, in the left ear.
You're not in this ear.
No. I think
I'm going to continue to have problems, so I may have to back out.
Yeah, it's well, just stick with it. See how you get on, and we'll hopefully it'll improve as the stream goes on. Oh, hiya, Stooplam. Hiya, how you doing?
Hiya, Stooplam.
Right, so
Hi, Lindy. Hi, Hydro.
hello, everybody. So this evening we're here to talk about 2 more episodes of season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Lonely Among Us, and Justice. That's our 2 episodes for this week. Starting with Lonely Among Us, which has got nothing to do with the massively popular online game that all YouTubers are playing at the moment, Among Us. Don't get confused. We're not... Monteban Live's not suddenly turned into a gaming channel like my main channel and we're now playing Among Us. Though, might not be a bad idea to do that at some point. But I wonder if that's one of the inspirations of the name of that that game. But yes, Lonely Among Us. So this is probably one of the first episodes of the series of the type of Star Trek: The Next Generation episodes that were Enterprise flies through a cloud and some glowy ball-like entity inhabits the ship, which I think there's, if memory serves, that there's a number of Star Trek episodes that go along these lines of they inherit or somehow pick up some sort of glowy entity that inhabits people or ships or things, and this is like one of the first episodes like that. So shall I just get straight into?
Yes, indeedy.
So the Enterprise, in the teaser, the Enterprise is transporting two species, two recently spacefaring species to a what do you call it?
Peace conference.
Peace conference. Thank you, G. A peace conference. Because they don't get on. They've met in space. They're like neighbours from the Beta Arena system, and they took an instant disliking to each other, and so the Federation are trying to step in, solve their issues, and admit them into the Federation. And the episode starts off they're in the transporter room in full dress uniform, and they're accepting the delegation from Sally. Is it Sally?
Yeah, Sally.
Sealy.
Oh, the Saleans.
Sally. The Sally beam aboard, and they can smell that the Antigons, is it?
Anticans.
Anticans. They can smell that the Anticans are already on board, and like, oh, why did you pick them up first? And they're like, well, because they were first on our route to where we are going. See how I did that? And that's just for G. That was they're like, well, where's our quarters? And they're like, well, we put you 100 meters away from the Anticons. And they're like, that's not good enough. And while you're at it, make sure we're upwind of them, because they don't want to be downwind of their stench. And Riker, to be fair, is like, yeah, okay, whatever. Oh, we can do that. So
I'm pretty sure there is no upwind, downwind in a ship. So I think he was just humouring them, to be fair.
Yes, for sure. I think, G, you got a pop quiz question about this scene.
I have indeed, yes. So, this is a question for our live viewers, because I'll, as we get to the end of this episode, I'll give out the answer. The question is, we said that the Enterprise was taking these delegates to a peace. That peace conference was on which planet? A, Congress, B, Parliament, or C, Republic? That's A, Congress, B, Parliament, or C, Republica. Put your answers in the comments, and as we get to the end of this episode, I'll give out the answer.
And I totally nearly said it earlier, but managed to get away with that.
That's why I jumped in with peace conference.
Yes, I know. I was like looking to you for help. I was like, help! Yeah, we said when they meet them, they're in the transporter room. They're in full dress uniform, and here is there you go. There they are in full. It's the first. I think it's the first time in this where we've seen the Enterprise crew in full dress uniform, and it kind of reminds me a bit more of the later uniforms, because it hasn't got like the bits on the shoulders, But yes. So on the bridge, we go up to the bridge, and Data reports that whilst they're travelling in warp, there seems to be something in their path. They've got, like, you look at the view screen, and there's a giant blue cloud in front of them. And when I saw that, I thought that's a bit weird, because if they're travelling at warp, surely they should be like warping towards the cloud. But then he reports that the cloud's also at warp, so they seem to be following a cloud at warp.
Except the stars aren't streaking like they should be.
No, it's weird. It looks really weird. It's like, oh, okay, right. I have another issue with this later on as well. But Picard orders them to pass within sensor distance of the cloud so that they can take some readings of it for scientific reasons. And we go down to Worf and LaForge that are just happen to be in the sensor room, recalibrating, re-looking at the sensors. Oh, I just realised the chat window, yes. Yeah, so they're in there recalibrating the sensors, and as they pass by the cloud, Worf gets zapped with blue lightning stuff. Hopefully, there you go. He doesn't like that.
That's a very Worfy face.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. He gets zapped and gets knocked out, and then we go to credits or go to the opening sequence. All that. And we come back, and Worf, they wake Worf up, but he's like really angry and like tries to deck everyone because he's
in my notes. I put Worf wakes up all Klingon-y.
Klingon-y. Yeah, he's like
Make me laugh.
and so Crusher sedates him, and on the bridge, Picard asks what happened, and Geordi says that his visor picked up a sort of glow just before Worf passed out. I'm surprised he didn't see that with his visor. I mean, you'd have thought that would have been quite obvious, but.
I mean, his eyesight's supposed to be better than humans and better than Data's, and we can see it with the naked eye there.
And he's like, "Well, I thought I saw something like a sort of glow." Yeah, no kidding. Meanwhile, the Antigons want their food to be delivered live. They're not happy with their food being delivered like already cooked or whatever. They're like, "No, we want to eat our food live." And Riker's like, well, we don't do that anymore, but yeah, we'll work on it. And they're like, but we've seen you eat meat. And Riker's like, yeah, but we have it like it's reconstituted, synthesized from the replicator. We gave up eating actual animals a long time ago. And that makes me think, I haven't really thought about it before, but everyone in Star Trek's like vegetarian from a Federation point of view, because they just eat replicated fake stuff, don't they? Mm-hmm. Just for some reason that's never dawned on me before.
So the Antigons are like, that's barbaric.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know how they can think of that as being barbaric, but I guess it's just because like you could argue like they're from like a completely natural background, and they just think this whole like G's gone again. He's actually given in. He's moving to another part of the house where he can get better reception.
Hopefully he'll come back then.
Yeah. Stu Plum mentioned the stars weren't flashing by.
Yeah, well. Good catch there.
Yeah. Yeah, barbaric. And then in sickbay.
I don't suppose you got a picture of the Antigons or the Sileans. On the set, they used to call them the lizards and the dogs. Because of what they look like.
Well,
maybe there'll be some pictures at some point, but no, maybe not.
There is. Hang on. There you go. Here's an Antigon.
So they're the ones they call the dogs. And that guy, do you know what his name is? I don't even know how to pronounce it, but he's called like Badar Ndit. And do you know who that actor is?
No.
You never believe it.
No,
That's
no.
Mark Alamo.
Is it really?
Yeah, who obviously, I don't know if other people realise, but he played about 4 or 5 other characters and then went on to become Golden Cat.
Yeah.
Now
you say it, I can hear his voice.
He was uncredited. He thought this was a bit bizarre and didn't really want his name on it. And then he thought that the end product turned out really fun, so he kind of regretted it later. But yeah, Mark Alamo's first role on Star Trek.
Well, I honestly didn't know that. Oh, well, there you
go.
I have to
Trivia
say,
girl. I'm goof girl today.
you are. I have to say, the makeup for that character is terrible.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't want his name on it, because it's a completely immobile face mask that all they can do really is poke their tongue through the hole. But yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. Sorry, just wanted to get that trivia in there about that main character,
It reminds me very
the
much.
main Antigon.
It reminds me that the Antigons remind me very much of like what's it called? Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
You know, the way their rubber faces don't move as they talk, but you can see lips under the lips move. You know,
yeah,
it's very much like that, isn't it? And
correct.
it just looks really awful. But you know, at least they do look kind of alien-y. It's just not like a person with a couple of bumps on their forehead. You know.
And the lizard people, they made a couple of the lizard heads out of this lightweight foam, but they took like 6 hours each to make. So at the beginning, when the whole delegation comes on, the other people like that filed in afterwards, they had these super, super heavy, uncomfortable lizard heads on. There was only 2 of them were actually comfortable and made out of foam.
I wonder if I can just. No, I thought it might have a picture of them, but it
Nah,
doesn't.
no worries.
There is no. No, there's actually no picture of them on the.
They're very much just like a walking lizard.
They are very much like a walking lizard.
Sorry, I digress. In sick bay.
In sick bay, as this picture here shows, Crusher gets infected. And it's like, oh, Worf's and Troy, you see, just don't quite see her there. She's just off camera. Troy's like, oh, Worf's reading normal now. And Troy asks Crusher if she's all right because she's now looking a bit dazed. And she's like, oh, yes, both of us are quite normal now. And I think Troy thinks she's talking about both herself and Worf. But no, I think Crusher's talking about herself and the thing that's now inhabiting her body. And Worf wakes up and he doesn't remember anything.
And what a fetching skull cap she's wearing.
It's great, isn't it? And the eyepiece to match.
Really awful. And they never use that again either.
No. But I have taken note that in this episode, this is the first time we see sick bay from this point of view, looking from the far end of sick bay back at Crusher's office with the big panel on the well, and this is like the traditional view of sick bay rather than looking out towards the observation lounge as it was before. And I think this is when they've like remodeled sick bay to make it look a little bit more like its own set rather than a redressed observation lounge. So on the bridge they are investigating the cloud, and Picard decides it's time to move on. And down in engineering, Wes is working on warp theory when... not in engineering, sorry. In Wes's in the Crusher's quarters, Wes is working on warp theory when his mum comes in. Crusher comes in, and she's actually interested in his work. And Wes is a bit surprised. He's like, "Really? You want to know about this?" And she's like, "Would it affect navigation?" And he's like, "No, this is just engineering, not helm control." And then she seems to remember that helm control is controlled on the bridge and just wanders off. And he's like a little bit like just left there in the lurch. He was all really happy for a minute that his mum was taking interest in his work, and then she just wanders back out. Yeah. So she heads up to the bridge, where she finds Helm like at the front of the bridge, and is that right?
Stu Plum was laughing at Worf's face when he got zapped as well, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if Stu Plum's a few minutes behind on his watching, but
I think he is. Yeah. Oh, he's just retracted all his messages now.
Well, he retracted the F because he put War's face, then he forgot the F.
Oh.
Oh, now that one's gone as well.
And he's retracting all his messages.
Oh.
Anyway, Crusher's on the bridge. She War's face. There you go.
Okay, it's
He's got
corrected
it.
his spelling
He's
mistake.
got it all. He's got it. So she's on the bridge. She informs Picard of Worf's condition, that he's all fine now, but she's acting a bit weird. And she go and uses the science station 2 next to Data, and Data kind of looks over her shoulder, and he's like, "What's Helm got to do with medical cross checks?" And anyway, then the blue energy passes from Crusher into the computer, and she's left disorientated. And like everyone else, rather than saying, raising some flag because they're Starfleet officers and going, something weird just happened, she just brushes it off and walks out. I think it's funny how they all go through these like weird experiences and then just like completely ignore it afterwards.
Yep.
You'd think they'd be like better trained, like weird things happening. You think they go, "Oh, something just weird's just happened to me, and now I have no memories of what I've just done." FYI.
She's away with the fairies, Stuplan says.
Yeah. Cheers. And then all of a sudden, bear in mind that all this blue energy just comes out of her and into the computer right next to Data. Data's still none the wiser. And then the computer terminal stop working. And the science station goes down. And then engineering calls to say they're having problems. And things start going wrong all over the ship.
And is it any of the 100 engineers that we've dealt with so far?
No,
it's a new guy, Mr. Singh.
Mr. Singh reports in from engineering, and Picard's like, "Well, the Enterprise is less than a year old. What's the chances of all these things going wrong all at once?" And Data's like, "It's virtually impossible." Dun 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 dun. It's amazing that all this all these weird things are happening, and they're just like, "Oh no, the ship's breaking down."
What are the odds,
What are the odds?
according to Data Astronomical?
Yeah. So then Picard gathers all the senior people into the conference room and is trying to get to the bottom of it. And Singh says, it's weird. It's when he's looking at it in engineering, it's like it's jumping from system to system. And Picard's just like, "Get it fixed. I want it fixed before we reach..." Oh, I'm not going to say the name of the place we're reaching, but...
Nobody's guessed the multiple choice yet.
No. And Smiler put there is A, Congress. Are we going to Congress, Parliament, or Republica? So yes, try to guess. And where are we heading to in this episode? So yeah, Picard wants it fixed. Singh tries to object, but Picard's like, "Get it done," and that's that. And then we go to the Antican's quarters. Here we can see Riker and Yar, because they found the Antigans skulking about outside the I forgot what the Selaeans quarters with weapons, and he's like, "Why are you going around with weapons?" And they're like, "These are not weapons, these are just our eating utensils."
We use them to stun and kill our food.
Yes.
So couldn't they stun and kill a person?
Yeah.
Well, yes, but what are you accusing us of?
Yeah. I didn't realise that was... There you go. Back on
also, sorry,
right,
but
yeah.
that tool thing of theirs is just like one of those little prop reuse things. That's
Oh, yeah.
also the coil spanner that's used in a very excellent episode of Voyager called Meld, which is where there's that guy, I can't remember his name, that Betazoid who turns out to be like a psychotic
the
serial
Psycho.
killer.
Yes.
Yeah. Gary really loves that episode, actually, so shame he's not here to comment. But yeah, that was used as a coil spanner in that episode, which is pretty cool.
Well, they had it hanging around for like 15 years.
Apparently
A
so.
little handheld thing. They must have had a warehouse of just full of these random props.
Bits and bobs, yeah. In fact, there's a diamond-shaped statue in the Antican's quarters that was used in Yar's quarters and was used in about 6 or 7 different places. Just this one statue as like a background prop. So yeah, they must have a warehouse and just reuse things randomly.
I used to have one of those props in my bedroom for a while. like Perspex glass statue from the Next Generation.
Oh yeah,
I'll point it out when we get to an episode that it's in.
yeah.
That's someone that you know, I think, when that lent it to me. Right. Anything in chat? No, nobody's guessed. Okay, so I've lost where I am. On the bridge.
Go to the bridge. They're
Worf.
losing warp speed.
Yeah, worse like we're losing warp speed, and so Picard tries to let where they're going know that they're going to be late, but lo and behold, subspace communications is also on the fritz now. So literally everything is breaking. And finally, they're like, oh, I think we're being sabotaged. Oh, really? Yeah. So they naturally suspect the delegates. And the way that it's said, Riker says to Picard, oh, you sound like a private investigator. And Data's like, inquiry, private investigator? And so then they explain to Data what a private investigator is.
It's private eye, wasn't it? But
yeah, private eye. PI, private eye. And he's like, it's generally quite a boring job, but in literature, it's really entertaining to read. And, examples of like Sherlock Holmes. And Data's like, interesting. Because Data has a sort of ongoing theme throughout Star Trek The Next Generation of Sherlock Holmes and mysteries and investigating mysteries, and it all stems from
designing
this episode.
all these Sherlock Holmes programs on the holodeck and stuff like that.
All from this episode. So this is the genesis of Data and his pipe. Yes, it's a smiley says there. Meanwhile, in engineering, Wes is like spots issues and sings like, "Oh yes, well done," and takes his place, and then dismisses him and says, "Get on with your learning." And Wes is like, "Oh, I don't learn as much in class as I do down here." And he's like, "I don't care. Go learn stuff." As per usual, engineers not listening to anything Wes has to say.
It's because they have a different engineer each time. They never learn.
They never learn. I don't know where Argyle is. He's AWOL. Back in Crusher's quarters, Wes moans about not, being sent away from engineering when he says he's like trying to do his dilithium research, like he was talking about earlier. And but Crusher doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's like, we were talking about it earlier. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, and while they're having this conversation, Singh, our new engineer who we've just met, gets zapped in engineering because he gets too close to finding out something. And Worf finds him and reports to the bridge that he's dead.
And there's kind of I don't know if it's a continuity error or a poor acting error, but when Singh's facing down, his eyes are like this, and then Worf turns over and his eyes are shut.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
That. Oh dear, G-Star is out of it. He's lost internet at his house. So
if LJ's there, tether to his phone. He's got unlimited data.
yeah. Tether to LJ's phone. LJ tech support.
Yeah.
So Picard launches an investigation, and lo and behold, LaForge finds that warp engines are now back online. And Wes is like, still very strange. So they go visit the delegates again. Oh, I've missed some pictures probably. What we got? Oh, there's Singh. There's Singh being
getting
zapped and murdered by something.
Bye-bye, Singh.
Bye, Singh.
We didn't know you long.
We did.
But it was nice knowing you.
And there's Data with his pipe. So they're going around asking people. They're investigating Singh's death, and they're like to the delegates, where were you when in the time of the hours of 8 and 9 p.m. in the evening of whatever? And they're like, we were eating dinner. And they're like, what, for 3 hours? And they're like, it was a very big meal.
I forgot to say earlier when we were looking at the Antican's quarters, but a lot of the scenes around those decks are very, very dark. And, as a general sort of observation, there's actually a whole deck that's almost blacked out in this episode, which never actually happens in any other episode. And in fact, even throughout the first series, a lot of the lighting is darker than it ends up being. Like from about season 3 onwards, it's very bright everywhere on the Enterprise, but season 1 is particularly dark in places.
Yeah, it's very much similar sort of lighting as they used in the original 60s Star Trek. They'd have almost like small spotlights illuminating people's face or eyes and things. It's very sort of noir type lighting, and it carried on with this, didn't it, for the first season or two until I think season 3 is when the Next Generation really became its own thing and found its own way without being looking back at the original Star Trek so much. Yes, so Bev asks Worf about his memory block, and Worf replies he doesn't remember having one, which I thought was really funny. I don't remember having
very
one.
Worf.
Yeah. And then in the observation lounge, Data, who's now read the entire Sherlock Holmes collection, reckons that at the time of Singh's death, something was afoot. And he determines that the delegates were too busy worrying about each other and doing all their shenanigans than to have had any time to kill the engineer or sabotage the system. So he says he says they didn't have a chance to do it, and then he's like, elementary, my dear Riker.
Sir.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very nice pipe, and it actually has smoke coming out of it when he actually uses it in the observation lounge. They actually lit the thing.
I'm surprised they weren't all like, "Oh, what's that smell?" But maybe it was something, it wouldn't be actual tobacco in there, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, the ship system should have put it out as it was smoking at first.
Yeah.
He walks past Yar, and Yar's like, ugh. Yeah. So they report this back to Picard, and who tells Data to lose the pipe. He doesn't like it. And Data says that
whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Yes. He says, we've eliminated family members and the crew. So yeah, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. And then helm control goes down, and Picard leans on helm, and it enters Picard. So then Picard's infected with this thing, and he orders Helm to turn the ship around and basically take the Enterprise back the way it came. And he's acting all kind of weird. And again, the crew just kind of go along with it. They're kind of looking at him suspiciously, but after everything that's happened, they're still not But I kind of wonder why they're taking the Enterprise back to the way they came, because the cloud that they were following was also at warp speed. So if they've been fannying around with all their shenanigans for the past day, surely the cloud is now further in front of them or somewhere else rather than back the way. Anyway, thinking about this too much, Mark.
True, totally true. And G-Star also made the point about why didn't the ship systems put it out? As Duplum says, they must not have had any smoke alarms.
Well, yes. And the delegates aren't happy about being turned around and not getting on their way. And the senior officers meet, and they decide to approach the captain because they're like, how can we, like, what grounds have we to mutiny and to replace the captain, so they go and confront Picard and say they want him to take a medical, and he kind of throws it back in their face and go, no, you're overworked.
He just basically calls them crazy, doesn't he?
Yeah, you're all crazy people. You all need to have a medical. And then kind of calls that like done, puts his foot up on the table and says, I'm too busy, go away. And then he's like, well, do you need me to call security? So they leave. And then a little bit later, Crusher comes back with all, knowing that they're Starfleet people, they probably spent the next few hours all having medicals. Because they're idiots. And then Crusher brings all this medical data back to the captain and puts on. He just doesn't care because he's not Picard. He's just like, yeah, whatever. And she's like, are you actually in there, Picard? And he's like, yes, your Picard is here, but there's more. There's more here. And yeah. And we will both be home soon. So basically, Picard then comes out onto the bridge and tells everybody what's happened, that they picked up a life form. It's quite a stirring speech where he walks around the bridge and talks about how the Enterprise came along and basically ripped him from his place, and he's been trying to talk to them all, but in ways that they don't understand, and he very much regrets the accidental death of Singh, the engineer. And him and Picard, they've talked about it internally, and Picard's quite happy to be beamed off into space with the entity as an energy being.
And it's only at this point that they declare him unfit for duty.
Yes, right. Like,
it takes till then.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, so something was happening. Oh, God, this is like the Federation flagship. And he zaps the entire crew so they can't move. He walks down to the transporter room and beams himself and Picard as energy into the plasma cloud. But then Troy feels that something's gone wrong, that Picard's out there somewhere as energy, but it's not worked.
She can sense him that he's on his own.
That he's on his own. That it's not worked out, and that he might try to get back in the ship in the same way the original entity did, and so they sense something. Something comes through the ship, ends up at helm, where a P is displayed on the console, and they're like, "Oh, is that? Do you think that's P for Picard?" Like, no. Do you reckon? So then they go down to the transporter room, and Geordi uses the Picard's pattern that's still in the pattern buffer, and reconstitutes him back onto the transporter pad. Picard, like all the others that have gone through this, is a bit hazy of what just happened. He's like lost his memory, and then Yar comes flying in and said there's been a puddle of blood found outside the Selayan quarters, and the Antikins have requested the cook to cook a reptile that looks suspiciously like the Selayan delegate. And at that point, Picard's like, yes, maybe I should have a lie down now. Number one, this is all over to you.
Which is a little bit out of character, like some people have observed on Tinternet World. I mean, we get he's had a hard day, but if his delegates that he's taking to a peace conference are committing murder, I think the captain would have a bit more to say than I need a rest.
I know, and they kind of play it off as one of those little comedy endings.
Yeah, I know, but it's actually like really bad and really serious.
Yeah, because like he just like happily wanders off, and
And they just kind of roll their eyes.
Riker's there. He's like, oh damn, and Troy has a little chuckle. It's like, really?
Murder's so funny at this point after the day they've had.
Yeah,
Doesn't
murder
make any sense.
and the consuming of sentient beings is just, it's just a light-hearted sign off of the episode.
Bizarre.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. So yes, that was the first episode. Now, G, hopefully you're still on somewhere. But if
He wanted to ask another question, didn't he?
Well, he wanted to ask another question, but he's not coming back. He's having internet difficulties, so he's not coming back. And nobody guessed the...
No, I thought Stuplum might have had a guess, because
Yeah,
I know that
think so.
Stuplum had watched it.
It was
But anyway, Parliament.
Parliament. They were going to Parliament, which I just thought was they're actually going to a Parliament. But no, apparently that's the name of the planet. They're going to Parliament. So there you go. Smiler-No. Yeah, of course, Smiler-No. You watched it with me this week. Yeah, and we can't have G score the episode.
Oh, are we scoring? I must admit,
we don't.
I left my scoring paddle in the other room. I must go grab it.
Well, yeah.
Do you want to start talking about the next episode while I go grab it so you don't have any
it's
dead air?
okay. No, it's okay. We can still talk about this one.
Okay,
but I thought,
carry on talking.
I thought overall it was... Oh, you carry on. I thought overall it was a very solid episode of a type of episode that is a sort of mainstay of Star Trek The Next Generation. And I thought it was quite good because it's the beginning of Picard, Data, and his obsession with Sherlock Holmes. Oh, and I've just found another picture. I didn't see this one earlier. So that's the Selayan. That's the...
and that's also Cole Meany.
Yes, Cole Meany.
He was still an unnamed character at this point.
Yes.
It's before he became O'Brien.
Yeah. That was when they were... Yeah, they were starting a fight. But yeah, that was the lizard person there. That's what they looked like. That's when they confront Picard. Sorry, I forgot to move the photos on.
That's all right.
I get too many things. And that's where Picard gives his speech about going into the storm, and that's the P. That's the P.
I'll have a pee, please, Jean-Luc.
Yeah, that's when he zaps them all, but that's like a behind the scenes photo, so you can't see the blue. Oh yeah, that's the collection of lizard people. Yeah, so there you go.
Cool. Can you remind me what our other scores were?
I can. Shall I run through what we...
Yeah, I would just like to remember
how
so I can make sure I'm scoring it appropriately against the previous ones.
Okay. Let me just find the right bit of paper. Gotta get past my Atlantis notes. Okay. So, for Encounter at Farpoint, we gave a 6. For The Naked Now, we gave a 7. For the episode after Naked Now, can't remember.
Code of Honor?
Code of Honor, we gave a 3. Well, that was the first episode we talked about last week.
That would be Last Outpost.
The Last Outpost, we gave 6. And
Where No One Has Gone Before.
we gave 5.
Right.
6, 7, 3, 6, 5.
Okay, then I think I know what I've got as a score.
Okay. So,
Are we ready to reveal our scores?
yes. No, hang on. Right, I'm ready.
Ready?
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Go. Oh, 5 and 6.
I think it was pretty good, to be fair. I mean, there were some stuff around, the kind of, I guess, the continuity with the cloud and things, which was a little bit annoying. But perhaps I was a little harsh on the scoring. But yeah, I think it was generally quite an entertaining episode.
I think because of Data's Sherlock Holmes stuff and how that is a foundation of his character in Star Trek, it's kind of an important episode for that.
Yeah.
And it's the first of this type of glowy ball inhabits the ship type episodes that, again, is a bit of a Star Trek mainstay. And it's one of those episodes that, even though it's not like really exciting or anything, I wrote shed. I was determined not to write that much about it, but I ended up writing shed loads again. So, yeah, let us know in the chat, guys, if you what you think you would rate this episode as. Yeah, so what are we going to put it down as then in the end?
I think a 6. Because I do think it was marginally better than Where No One Has Gone Before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's go for a 6. Round up.
Yeah.
And then on to the next one.
Stu Plum gives it a B.
That was probably the multiple choice. I still think Stu Plum might be sort of 5 minutes behind on the episode, but yes, B. I believe that was correct, wasn't it?
It was correct. That was correct.
Yeah.
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 Stu Plum, no.
Yay!
We knew that. Yeah. Yeah. So the next episode, Justice. It's a Wesley Crusher episode. Well, it's not really a Wesley Crusher episode, but again, Wesley features quite highly in this episode.
Yeah.
Part of the story. Oh, that's what I was going to say as well.
What?
In that last episode, Lonely Among Us, one thing I did notice about it was you had the storyline with the delegates and the peace treaty and all that, and the main storyline of the entity invading the ship or being picked up by the ship. And I think it's something that became a sort of norm of Star Trek The Next Generation storytelling, of having the A story and the sub-B story, the subplot, which is something they didn't do too much of in the original 60s Star Trek. 60s Star Trek just generally had the villain or the alien of the week and Kirk and Spock and McCoy having to battle, dealing with that, whatever it was. It wasn't that sophisticated as to have a main story and a subplot, and then sometimes the two interweaving, sometimes completely divorced from, but sharing similar themes to. And a couple of the first episodes of this season just was about one story, but this is one of the main first examples of a good main story and subplot that we see that structure then sort of carry its way forward in Star Trek The Next Generation in particular.
Yeah.
And again, it's something, and I don't want to talk about it, but it's something again that I find's missing from modern Star Trek like Discovery and Picard. They have a main plot, a subplot, a sub-subplot, about 8 other subplots that then carry out throughout the entire series. And sometimes along the line, the writers seem to forget about some of the subplots because they just leave them, especially in Picard. There's some things that they start off and they just never come back to. And some of it just comes back and they end up 10 episodes later having to do mental gymnastics trying to pull all these subplots back together again, and you're left with a real mess of a show. And I think just this way of storytelling is just it's a lot nicer.
More elegant, neater.
It's more elegant. Yeah. Sorry, that's just my weekly Discovery and Picard rant over. So Justice, yes. Stu Plum gave the last episode a 5. So I'm. Well, maybe I should give it 5.5.
I don't know. Maybe we should see what G-Star thinks as well.
I'll wait for G-Star.
He was supposed to be here voting with us, so yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah.
He can be the deciding vote.
A for data. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So Justice. It starts off basically they've just dropped some colonists off at a planet who's going to be terraforming it, and unexpectedly they come across an M-class planet in the Rubicon star cluster, and they not only determine it to be habitable, but Picard states that it's unusually lovely.
Lovely.
It's lovely. It's not only habitable, but it's unusually lovely. And so the crew wants shore leave because they've been working hard. And it's kind of like, well, why not? And Yar says that, well, she's looked into the customs and laws and says it all looks pretty simple. So there's no issue there. And Geordie says that...
And there are no negatives at all.
No, and there's absolutely zero negatives. And Geordie says, additionally, they make love at a drop of a hat.
Yar says, any hat.
Yeah.
And they all kind of look at her like, TMI, dude.
Yeah. You've been investigating this, Yar, aren't you? Data reports that he's got a faulty reading, saying that the sensors are registering something in orbit with them, but when they look on the view screen, there's nothing there. Anyway, so the away team are set to go, and Picard orders Wes to go with the away team down to the planet so that he can assess its suitability for sending their young people down. And he says, let's hope it's not too good to be true. Roll credits.
Yeah.
So, in Picard's like, Captain Picard, Captain's log. In his log, he identifies the people as being the Edo.
Edo.
The Edo. Which, because I'm a anime nerd, Edo is also the old name for Tokyo.
Oh.
And when Tokyo was called Edo, that's what they call the Edo period of Japan. And it's where the emperor shoguns and the samurai are from the Edo period. And it was supposed to be like an idyllic time in Japan, but also when laws were very strict.
There you go.
There you go.
Little Easter egg.
Yeah, and I only know that's not researched. I just happen to know that from watching anime.
Well, that wasn't picked up in any of the trivia or any of the research I did.
No.
So there you go.
I don't even know if that was where I don't know for sure
like
that's
I mean,
the reason,
surely that's too coincidental for there to be those parallels.
Just in case anybody hasn't seen his face for too long, there you go.
Wearing a weird jumper. I mean, not as bad as the jumper in the last episode, to be fair, but
he was
still a relatively weird jumper.
He was wearing that gopping orange thing.
Orange thing with all the weird frills and stuff. Oh, that's terrible. Again, if G was on the call, he'd have probably been calling out Wesley's terrible outfit in the last episode.
It's the first time I've said the word gopping in a long time.
It is decidedly gopping.
It brought out a gopping in me. Yeah. Waiter! Yeah. So, Riker, Yar. If Karen was on, she'd now be taking the mick out of me.
Yeah.
Worf, Troy, and Wes are all beaming down as a part of the away team. And Riker takes one look at them and he's like, well, as they jog over, and he's like, well, they certainly are fit. And Troy's like, yeah, right. and basically they meet Riven and Leater. And they come up and run up and basically just start hugging everyone because that's the way they are. And Troy's happy because she's sensing real happiness and other things. And Riven welcomes Worf.
And it surprised me because I would have thought Worf would have been like I don't hug, but instead he gave her a really big hug and went, "Nice planet."
I know. She hugs him and she's like, "Oh yes," with a hug. And Worf's like, "Nice planet." She's easily pleased. Yeah.
He must give good hug.
It must do. And but she doesn't know. Then she gets to Wes and she doesn't know what to do really because she's like, "Oh, a young boy." And
nor does he though. He's like, "I don't know.
Like,
do what you normally do."
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, he doesn't say it, but he's like, "When in Rome, just do what comes natural." And bless him. So Riker's like, "Well, we need to discuss surely for the ship and numbers and things." And Leater's like, "Well, we can go to the council chambers," but Riven's like, "Do you want to go and discuss these things now, or do you want to play?" And Riker's like, "Play?" And she's like, "Yeah, make love." He's like, "Ooh." And Wes is like, I think it's time I was going.
Because they're all like, "We know she wants to and we know he wants to." And Wes is like, "I gotta go." And it all does come off as a little bit pervy, to be fair.
It's a bit weird, isn't it? By modern eyes looking at it now, it's all a little bit like, there's her getting the hug from Worf. He doesn't look particularly happy about it, does he? But she's like, "Well, for Wesley, the boy, we should perhaps maybe go on to the council chambers after all. And we've got some children there. And so, it'd be good for him to meet our children." So.
And then they run.
And I like the way they put Troy at the back behind everyone, because obviously I don't think Troy's a particularly good runner. So as they're all running along, Troy's hidden behind everyone.
But not only that, I mean, it's funny you said about Wes was like, "Oh, well, when in Rome," because that's actually what Riker says to Worf. When they start running, he's like, "Oh, well, when in Rome," and runs after them. And Worf's like, "What's Rome?" Which, of course, later on we find out that Worf grew up on Earth, so he should know what Rome is.
Well, yes.
But at that point, we're still viewing him like a Klingon, random Klingon.
Yeah. On the starboard bow. I think Stu Plum's ahead of me now.
No, it was the that thing that was off the starboard bow. There was a thing on the starboard bow.
A thing on the.
I couldn't think of what would rhyme with Klingon. There was a thing on the starboard bow.
Yeah. So they arrive at the chambers after a nice light leisurely jog, and some children come running out.
Oh, I know.
And one of them's hairy like a gorilla.
My comment is like, how hairy is that child?
It looks to be about 28.
Yeah, that was not a child. Again, bit pervy. All things just slightly kind of a bit wrong.
It's all a bit wrong, isn't it? So, yes, Wes goes running off with them to play. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Data has finished his analysis and hails whatever he's found something off the starboard bow and just hails it. He's like, He doesn't
even get instructed to.
No.
He just takes the initiative.
God doesn't say hail the thing. He just hail to whoever's out there. Show yourselves, sort of thing. And this space station-y ship thing kind of semi-appears. Dun 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 dun. So Picard asks LaForge to go use his visor to get a better look at it. So LaForge goes down. I didn't realise this forward observation lounge is used a fair bit in this first season, and it's before they built 10 forward. So It's like the season 1 equivalent of 10 forward is this little like room with a window. So he goes.
So, like, I'm guessing the screen in the bridge then is a screen. It's not. It must be just a screen. Even when they're just looking at the outside stuff, that's just a projection of what the outside cameras are seeing. Yeah.
Yes.
Because he said he has to get a real look, so he's got to look through a proper window, I guess.
Yeah. In Star Trek, the view screen is always just like it's actually like a semi holographic 3D screen. So when you like look at it from the side, you see the people on the screen from semi side on. It looks kind of weird because it's supposedly like 3-dimensional, like you're looking out of a window. But it's not until the J.J. Abrams Star Trek remake that they make the view screen an actual window. And then with all of the remakes after that, from like Discovery and even Picard, the view screens are all windows.
Right.
Why they did that, I don't know. But it was just something they decided to do from then on. The view screens are windows. Oh, look, Space King's back. And he's give us the answer B. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Maybe 15 minutes late, but great. Cheers.
Yay. Yeah, there we go. So basically he looks at it through the window and he's like, yeah, it's like it's not really there. It's semi here, semi somewhere else. And then a glowy orb comes out. A ball comes out of the thing, passes through the ship, goes through some bulkheads and some corridors, and ends up on the bridge.
It's a bit weird though, because on the view screen it sort of goes whoop, like it goes over the ship, but then you cut to an outside view and it's going whoop under the ship.
Yeah.
And I know that the view screen isn't really a window, but surely it wouldn't be showing an upside down view of the world. So that was a bit odd.
Yeah, the people that did the graphic for one weren't talking to the people that did the graphic for the other one. So it goes onto the bridge, and in like one of those like Star Trek godlike voices, it goes, "What is your purpose?" in a booming voice that makes the whole ship shake. So I'm surprised Picard didn't ask the being to turn the volume down a bit.
Also, when it came through the floor, Data looked like proper shocked. And I know he's like tries to emulate humans, but it looked like a genuine display of emotion, which we know he can't do.
Yeah. And Picard explains who and why they're there, and the orb warns them not to interfere with the planet below. And then the orb decides that the best way of it to get things across was to be to interface with Data. So it kind of attaches itself to Data's head, and Data passes out on the bridge floor. There he is. Then down on the planet below, Wes is playing with the children when the girl is like, there's something in particular I want to play with you. And Wes
something you can teach me.
Something you can teach me. And Wes is like, well, there are some games
I don't know about
yet. He's like, uh-oh. And she's like,
very weird.
I want to know ball games. And he's like, oh, phew. And he's like, I've got one. Let's go find a bat. And they're like, a bat? And it's like, oh, just like a stick or a club or something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, we can find that in the garden. So they go running off. Back at the conference place, Worf's not really comfortable because whilst everybody's having fun, he's a little bit, he's a bit afraid to actually get anywhere with any of the women because he's afraid of breaking them. And he says, like, for that kind of thing, I need a Klingon woman. You are far too fragile. Riker tries contacting the Enterprise, but can't get through. Comms are down. So, as a precaution, he tries to bring the away team together. And so they go out.
And you think he would have at least got somebody else to try their comm badge, just as a matter of protocol.
Just maybe as his brother.
Isn't that the most? Yeah, the common thing would be that your device is just temporarily broken.
Yeah, yeah. I think we probably need to go to another. Yeah.
I think it was that guy. Honestly, the camel toe. It was.
Oh,
it
you
painful.
spotted that as well. This guy
terrible.
had this like thong like thing, and you can see what he's wearing there. Somehow he managed to be a man and still have a camel toe between his legs. It's quite amazing how he accomplished that. But it was, I don't explain.
I had it noted earlier. I had dancing, massage, camel toe. Apparently, Gene Roddenberry wanted them to wear even skimpier outfits, but like the costume design people were like, "We can't do that without it just falling off.
Yeah.
This is as far as we can go."
But it's like he had his sausage placed one side and his testicles placed the other side, and they were kind of garroted down the middle.
It was pretty nasty.
It's just it can't be comfortable. How he sat like that. I'm surprised he's not doing this. But anyway, yeah.
He doesn't look relaxed, to be fair.
No, and there, so he's basically reporting back to Yara that they got no crime because she's security. He had a security. He's like, yeah, we don't worry about that. We got no crime. And she's like, none. And she's like, no, nobody breaks any laws here. And like, have you got any police? And they're like, yeah, we've got like a few, but they're never really needed. Because it turns out that any crime, if it's within this particular area that's predetermined and within a white fence, is punishable by death. And nobody ever knows where it is, so nobody risks ever committing any crimes because it could be instant death for anyone at any time. And yours, like,
the thing is, though, they say they've got these mediators, and then they say they're only needed once a day. So what does that mean? That somebody actually accidentally contravenes the law once every day?
Guess so.
Presumably, they're only needed, like, if they don't have any crime, like once every few years or something.
Yeah. And they didn't seem to really have many of them. But Yaro's like pretty shocked about this. And then they were going to get Wesley anyway, but now they're like, oh, we need to urgently find, who's supposed to tell visitors about this?
Yeah. It wasn't in any of the research she did about their laws and customs. You think that this would be a fairly major thing that you'd want to find out.
Basically, Yar did a terrible job.
Sounds like, yeah.
And lo and behold, we cut to Wesley playing in a field where he just happens to trip over a white fence and crash into a greenhouse. Rot-row.
And it's like the reaction of people, they're like, oh no! And he's like, what? I'm fine. And they're like, no, oh my God. And he doesn't understand why they're all panicking.
No, I'm all right, honest. We probably got a next picture
funny.
of him lying in a... There you go. But he's like, I'm fine. And considering that on this entire planet, they've just got a few policemen, he literally falls through it. And 2 seconds later, 2 policemen, or what are they called? I've forgotten what they're called.
Mediators.
2 mediators jog up. They run. Yeah. I guess because they just set... I guess they set the white fence up and then hide behind a bush waiting. So they turn up straight away and Wes explains what happens, and they're like, oh, you freely admit it then? And he's like, we're Starfleet, we don't lie. But he does it with his high-pitched voice.
Apparently Will Wheaton really cringes to this day at that line.
It is cringy line.
It's the way he says it. We're Starfleet. We don't lie. It's like really kind of a bit over dramatic.
Yeah, it is one of those like mega cringe lines. Yeah, but the police are like, well, he admits his guilt, and you're ready for your punishment. And so they get out a syringe and say, like, hold still. And Look, just like that, So the away team automatically pull out phasers and go, no, you don't. And then the I keep calling them police. What are they called again?
Mediators.
The mediator's like, oh, look, you made the boy all scared now. You made the boy frightened. This would have been painless and it would have been no problem. And unfortunately, Riker still can't get out of the Enterprise. Meanwhile, on the ship, the bubble's finished with data and disappears off. Everything frees up. Picard contacts the away team, gets a synopsis, and then beams down to the planet. There was nothing else there, was there? I think that was about it. So Picard enters the room, and Leator says, we're sorry that this has happened, and they explain their laws and how their laws have been around for a long time, and it's brought tranquility to the planet. And Picard explains that capital punishment is no longer considered a justifiable deterrent by the Federation, and he seems a little bit high and mighty at that point, doesn't he? And the guy's like,
take a bit of offence.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, we're just backwards people, aren't we? Why Leator's like, why don't, if you're so superior, why don't you just take your guy by force and leave? We can't touch you because we're obviously backwards people, and we'll just put him down to a criminal who's untouchable. And Picard explains, well, they've got the Prime Directive and they can't just go ahead and do that sort of thing.
Stu Plum's got a few comments here. He said, good casting, and then 6 minutes later, rough love, and then 2 minutes later, he was photoshopped. But I'm not entirely sure what those are in reference to.
The rough love is probably Worf.
Worf, yeah. Good casting.
Good casting.
I don't know. Was
Not
that
sure.
about camel toe?
Was he photoshopped? That might have been the camo toe thing.
I don't know. No. Anyway, thanks for inputting, even if we're not quite following.
Answers on a postcard. Smiler will reply to him. She always knows what they're talking about. Yeah. Oh no, I've lost my place.
So they got a bit offended and stuff, and then they're talking about they were saying, why don't you just take him? And then they were saying they got a Prime Directive.
Picard checks that Wesley's not going to be hurt in any way until sundown, and then asks if he can take Riven back to the ship and show her something. So then she's a little bit concerned, a bit scared about, beaming up to the ship. And to be fair, if I was a race that didn't understand all that technology, it's a pretty frightening thing. It'd be even more frightening if they actually explained to you what beaming actually was. Oh, don't worry. We're just going to take your body apart molecule by molecule, jumble it up, send it, hundreds of miles up into space, where we're going to reconstitute you molecule by molecule on our transport pad. It's like, no thanks. I'm out. So they get back and they meet Crusher in the corridor, and she wants to know about Wes, and Picard's like, not at the moment, Doctor. It's like, I felt sorry for Crusher at that point. And Picard takes Riven to the lounge and goes, have you seen this before, out the window? And she's taken aback and bows down before her god. We got another picture. Oh no, that's just the end, isn't it?
Just them at the hearing.
Yeah.
Oh, is that not them at the hearing?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there she is.
There she is.
I mean, the thing is, doesn't the Prime Directive extend to not taking, sort of less advanced native people from their planet and plonking them in front of their god? Doesn't that violate the non-interference element?
Oh, the photo of Wes falling looked superimposed. That's what.
Oh, right.
I think it was this one. This one here, was it? Yeah. That one. No, he was actually there. He fell through this like greenhouse-like thing. But yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the God certainly thinks it's wrong because he comes with his booming voice and he's like, "Return my child!" And the spaceship thing starts glowing red and coming for the Enterprise. So Picard very quickly slaps his communicator onto Riven and says, "Transport room, one to beam down." And so they beam Riven back and the God backs off again. Was there anything else on that one?
Nope.
No.
God gets angry. They beam her back.
Yes. In sickbay, Data tells Picard that they were interdimensional beings. So they're part here, part elsewhere. And that they consider... he starts talking all about them. About their planets. And Picard's like, "Stop babbling." And then Data starts to go, "Oh, I know I communicate in a certain way, but I don't believe..." And he's like... and he's talking about Wesley and how they're being observed by interdimensional beings, so they probably can't do anything, and that gets Beverly all upset, and she tells him to shut up. And then he's like, "Oh, I do babble."
But they basically come to the conclusion that because the God guy knows everything that Data knows, the God guy knows their rules and knows their prime directive. And because he's observing them, it's a question of how he react or judge them if they contravene their own laws.
Yeah. Yep. So then there's a long conversation where Picard asks Data to come and talk to him a bit more. And they go back and forth about the Prime Directive and how they can get out of it. And
I think, I mean, obviously the idea of the Prime Directive does evolve. But at this point, you know, Picard's saying, well, the Prime Directive was never designed, you know, it was never meant for anybody to take a life. But actually, that's not quite true. The Prime Directive is actually that, you know, if necessary, if you're put in that position of potentially disrupting a whole civilization, you should willingly give up your life. That's kind of one of the points of the Prime Directive, actually. So, yeah, he's not exactly on the money there. But, yeah, they're trying to sort of figure out the relationship as well between, like, the God and the people and, you know, what is it? Did he colonize that world? You know, why does that God care so much and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and it's like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And would you choose one life over 1,000? So,
yeah.
And Picard's like, "I refuse to let arithmetic decide questions like that." Hello, Ludacris. Ludacris is in the house.
Yes, we're live.
So. Yes, and then when Dr. Crusher arrived, Picard lets her beam down with him, and he tells them that under no circumstance will he allow the Edo to execute Wesley, no matter what. Regardless of the cost, he's not going to let Wesley get executed.
And as a little, I don't know if you'd call it a goof, but even though, you know, continuity-wise, it seems fine that Picard gave up his comm badge, therefore he's not wearing one. In actual fact, you'd never have the captain of a starship beam down without a comm badge and without anybody able to lock onto his signal. So they would have issued him with another one. That would be well against protocol.
They have spares. Let's face it.
Yeah, but he just beams down without one. Yeah. Like, it just doesn't care. They're threatening to kill my crew, but I don't care if I can't be beamed out.
So, you know, the mediators don't like it, but he's saying Picard knows what they went through and he knows what their laws mean to them, but you got to think of the spirit of the law and not just the official way it's written. And he believes that,
says there can be no justice if laws are absolute.
Absolute, that's right. So, risking the wrath of their God and the Federation, because they're like, you know, you get. He's like, well, I'll have worse than the death penalty from Starfleet Command, which I doubt it, but they might not be happy with him. He gives the order to beam up, and nothing happens. So the Edo felt. Hello, Chris. In the background.
Shutting the door so he can run around naked and not be on camera, probably.
Probably. None of us want to see that.
He's going to be running to the shower in a minute. He's just come in. That's what he always does.
We saw enough of naked flesh in this episode.
That's true.
Without
That's
any more.
very true.
Yeah. So the Edo feel vindicated. And so Picard shouts at the ceiling, there can be no justice thing. Makes their arguments, and then all their things come back, and Picard can then return to the ship. And when they're back on the ship, Picard hails the space station-y thing and informs them that they're leaving, and they'll also be retrieving the colony that they put on the other planet belonging to these I nearly said intertransgender people, but no, the interdimensional people. And the space station thing disappears. And that's that. The Enterprise departs.
Stu Plum's just said hairy kid, which was like about a half hour ago. But
hairy kid, yes. Yes, hairy kid. Yeah, there we go.
So, a couple of things.
Things.
Did you know originally this was the second episode written after Encounter at Farpoint?
I did not know that.
And it was completely different originally. It was like two different factions, and then like one kills another. And because he was killed unlawfully, his partner kills him or something, and it gets into this whole who killed who was in the wrong, that kind of a justice thing. And then it went through a lot of rewrites, to the extent where the original person who came up with the concept or the story used a pseudonym instead of his real name, because he thought it was just so far from what he'd originally written. But several other things were added where, it changed to the Edo. They become like a central base people, which they weren't originally. The whole thing with Wesley, it was originally like a military thing. The whole kind of God aspect was added. So it was almost unrecognizable, but because it went through sort of 5 or 6 rewrites, that's why it ended up being like episode 8 instead of episode 2.
All right. I mean, a lot of the episodes of this season were heavily rewritten, and a lot of the writers didn't like the rewrites and had their names taken out, and there was a lot of shenanigans about writing credits, and the behind the scenes of this first season was a mess. There's an interesting documentary about Star Trek The Next Generation's inception, and I've forgotten what it was called.
How chaotic it was.
Yeah, but it was how chaotic it was. In no part because of Gene
Roddenberry's influence.
Yeah.
And you might know more about this, but apparently in terms of its ties to the original series, it's got some resemblance to, I think it was 1964 episode or something called The Apple, which I'm guessing is like somebody eats an apple they shouldn't, and then all of a sudden, wrath is brought down upon them, or they're, some strict punishment for like eating a fruit or something. But I don't know if you know that episode.
Can't think of it off the top of my head, but it is the whole episode is very 1960s Star Trek. Even with the God voice of the orb, it was very much like the Guardian of the Edge of Forever, or whatever he's called. That was in Discovery at the end there.
The only final point I have, which, I mean, obviously I get this from research and stuff, but I'm kind of annoyed at myself at not having picked up on this, is... Did you know that Picard has this pattern of taking, lesser evolved females up onto his ship to look at their planet from orbit? He does it several times. He does it in this one. He does it with Nuria in Who Watches the Watchers.
He does. Yes, he
with
does.
Those sort of early Vulcan people. And he does it with Lily in First Contact.
Yeah, First Contact, yeah.
And then in Insurrection, you actually find out that the first time Picard ever went into space and saw his planet from orbit was like, you know, a kind of an earth-changing or a life-changing moment for him where time stood still. So I guess he uses it as a profound way to talk to people, or at least he does with the later ones. In this one, he was just like, tell me who that is. But with Nuria and with Lily, certainly it's because he's really trying to get through to them some concept that they can't understand in any other way. So he uses that profound thing from his own past as a way of getting through to them. But it's just something I never really thought of before, that he actually does that several times.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So shall we score the episode?
I believe we should.
I've lost where's my page where I scored it last time? Hang on a minute.
And any scores from those watching, feel free to pitch in.
Put your scores on the doors. Add in chat.
Smiler Rainbow says, so instead of Kirk being come to my bed, Picard's all come see my ship.
Yeah.
With the ladies.
It could be mistaken as being a bit creepy, couldn't it? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Which
we ready?
Am I ready? I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Oh.
1, 2, 3.
Hang on. I'm not sure. Oh.
Double checking the other scores.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm going with that. I'm going with this.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
3, 2, 1.
And show.
Yeah. See, no, I went with 4 initially. I did go with 4. And then I changed it to 3 at the last minute.
It's not a great episode, to be honest. I mean, the only reason why I picked 4 was because when I looked at my other scores, I did Code of Honor as 3, and I think it's marginally better, but I don't know really if it's a whole point better, to be fair.
No, that's what I was juggling in my mind. Is I thought, no, it's better than that, and then after a while I thought, actually, no, it's not really that much better than that, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think like some of the concepts were great, but I think some of the execution and the perviness sort of overrode my enjoyment in general.
It's just the cringe nature of the entire episode. It's just Wes is cringe. Those scantily clad people are cringe. The God voice is cringe. I just find the whole thing a bit cringy. So I'm going to go with 3.
No problema.
Yeah, there we go. We got that. And the last thing I wanted to talk about today, just briefly, just a highlight to everyone who hasn't seen it, and this is to Stu Plum in chat. He'll get this in a quarter of an hour's time. But on Amazon Prime, if you haven't seen it, the first series of Star Trek Lower Decks is now available to view. So if you haven't seen that yet, feel free to check that out. What do I say about it? Without no spoilers or anything. It's an animation. If you've ever seen anything like Rick and Morty or Final Space, those sort of like comedy cartoons, it's of that nature. It's a similar animation style, similar comedy style to those things. So I have a like. I won't even go as far as love-hate, but I have a like-dislike relationship with it. So, one, it's by CBS, who made Discovery and Picard, by Kurtzman, who made Picard and Discovery. So, my bar on what I accept from this is pretty low, because I dislike everything they've done to Star Trek, so I don't like it. But that being said, it's the most Star Trek-y thing that they've made to date. Because
And it's not even got real people in it. That's an
not-
achievement.
and it's basically a comedy cartoon taking the piss out of Star Trek The Next Generation. So on one hand,
But you think about it, what's like the Orville, that's kind of like a parody on Star Trek, and that's the most Star Trek-y thing we've seen in like 15 years.
it's exactly like that. And the success that Orville's had over the last 3 years is what's
Now they're jumping on the bandwagon.
inspired them to create this cartoon, because it is very much like Star Trek Orville. Even like the crew are like a B-class ship, and it's like it's a mediocre small ship that gets like the crap duties of the Federation, and we don't follow the bridge crew, we follow the lower decks people, so it's like the worst of the worst in Starfleet.
Sounds good.
Aspire to be better than what they are. And so whilst I don't like the people that made it, and while I like the Orville, because Orville is like a comical it's a love letter to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
This is more like Star Trek, they're just taking the mick, So that irks me a little bit when it's made by the people that have crushed Star Trek,
Yeah.
It has that sour note to me but that being said,
You still like it.
I still kind of like it because it's based on, it's the Next Generation era. It's proper Star Trek with all the Star Trek things that I notice. They're self-contained episodes with a plot and a subplot. And they have quite a lot of jokes in there that actually made me chuckle. I actually thought it was, it is quite funny in places, the things that they do. It just make you chuckle. And it's got lots of pointing at Star Trek and Star Trek The Next Generation and member berries, They're really obvious about it.
Sorry, I just got to tell you, I heard the shower start, and then about 20 seconds after the shower started, his alarm's gone.
Oh no.
So then the shower's just been switched back off again. So he's going to be running out the door.
He's running
Wet.
down the street with his towel around his waist, sprinting to
That's going to so annoy him. It's hilarious. Sorry.
Scores are in for Stu Plum. He gave it a 5.
5. Generous.
A generous 5. I think he gave the last one a 5 as well. So he thought they were both 5 episodes. So there you go. So
Liked them equally.
He liked them both. Well, both. He was meh with both of them.
Yeah.
5 out of 10, isn't it?
I'm going to definitely watch that. Thanks for that. Didn't know anything about it.
Yes. Watch it. It will make you chuckle in places. So that was it, really. That was all I was going to mention. Of course,
Cool.
This is now weekly. So if you like this, or if you're watching it on, on YouTube and catch up, and you're like, oh, that was quite an enjoyable hour talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, then please feel free to join us next Wednesday at 8 o'clock for the next 2 episodes. I'd better look at what the next 2 episodes are so I can let Stu Plum know.
If I can get to it any quicker than you, I'll let you know. But you'll probably get to it quicker than me.
The Battle and Hide and Q. Those are both good episodes.
Ooh.
So yeah. With the
Interesting.
battle, we return to Stargazer, Jean-Luc Picard's last command. And with Hide and Q, it's Q trying to tempt Riker to join the Q continuum. So
Gotta love a bit of John Delancey.
gotta love a bit of John Delancey, and gotta love a bit of TNG Ferengi episodes. So, and both of those are pretty, in what I remember, are both good episodes. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Vicky's excited about more Q.
More Q. Yeah, the battle. So take a note, Stu Plum. The Battle and Hide and Q for next week.
Yeah, he's saying he will watch it, but Lindy Hop, he does live with somebody that's not such the fan, but she's
No.
fine. He just watches it with his headphones in. It's no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so thank you, Mazza McBob, for joining me. Sorry, G-Star, for missing out. Hopefully he'll get his internet sorted for next week, because I think with three of us talking about it, it's a little bit more, more of a group discussion, isn't it? So yeah, yeah, we'll see you next week.
Indeedy.
I'm gonna play us out with the intro screen and some music, just in case, just for a few seconds, just in case anybody is lagging behind, is buffered, and to make sure we record it all. So yeah,
No
cheers
worries.
everyone. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye now.